Hello everyone. I wanted to make this video about the last live stream that I had on YouTube with this guy Rolo Slavsky. And first of all, I wanted to say that I invited him because during this whole Russell's disappearance ordeal, he um, he wrote an article in his Substack page, and I thought that he might have had some, I don't know, other information, shed some light on the matter. And Rolo Slavsky is a is a dissident from. I was surprised that I thought he was Russian. Really, my ignorance, my bad. But he was born in Kiev in the Soviet times, apparently. I really don't know. I really cannot confirm any of this information because Rolo Slavsky, I found him only because through Russell, actually. Russell gave him some interviews, which I found very strange, actually. And I remember messaging Russell about these interviews with Rolo and saying it doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right. Uh, and I know a lot of the things that Russell, because I had the opportunity to talk to him in person afterwards and online as well. A lot of the things he said on these interviews with Rolo, a lot of them he didn't. How to say? When you're real pissed off at something, and you say something you don't want to say, and you regret it afterwards. So this is how I interpreted Russell's words on these interviews. I know Russell had a lot of critics, internal critics of the Russian policy towards the Donbass concerning very particular aspects. But in the overall, Russell was all pro Russia and all pro Mr. Putin, and because he realized the bigger picture, right? I remember him complaining about, for example, some lack of certain items that the soldiers needed at the front line, like, for example, thermal imaging that could save his life. And he often told this story of how this thermal imaging device saved his life and his companion's life while he was at the front lines. So stuff like that. Yeah. Of course, then I know that Russell at some point stopped talking to Rolo, and in one of my live streams he said, "Rolo, if you're listening to me, f you." You can go back and check that one. And the reason I talk to Rolo, it's not just one reason, it's two reasons. First of all, I tend to talk with anyone who puts up civilized conversation. I will not talk. I will hardly. It will be hardly a possibility to talk. The only exception I make is to NAZI people. I mean, those I consider not talkable for obvious reasons. I mean, you, when you defend such thing and such violence against other human beings just because someone started that, of course, we would go much deeper into that, but then this video would take very, very long. So that's probably the only exceptions. But I don't agree with Rolo's views, and I tell him that, and he apparently is okay with that. He doesn't like start calling me names or anything like that. I listen to him, but I normally I listen to him more than I talk. And in this last conversation, some of his views, I've was really I really found some weak spots there. I tend not to rebuff them during the conversation because I think people when they have a stance either pro or anti something, they don't like when two people are debating that if you are supporting one of the ideas, they don't like that this guy that supports your idea lets the other guy talk too much on his own idea. I think this is the wrong stance. Sorry to say, if I don't want to offend anyone, of course, but I think this is the wrong stance. As long as the conversation keeps a civilized tone, you can just listen and then, if you feel so, give your take. And I did that. And if you recall, for example, the depiction he makes of the Russian society is, I mean, it's complete opposite of what I see and what I saw. Uh, I do not like immediately go and rebuff that very strongly because I always have this reasonable doubt, you know. I always think like this. Okay, I've been there. My experience was great because it was, including in the war zone. And when I say it was great people-wise. Of course, the landscape, the peculiar landscape I like as well, and the whole thing of the Soviet inheritance, the old Soviet landmarks, and all these things I do love, of course, architecture. But what came across to me as the most positive aspect was the people. And this is one thing that Rolo really says. That's, I mean, if you listen to him, you think that Russia is a gangland, it's lawless, controlled only by gangs, and if you are not affiliated with one of the lords, one of the gang lords, you are vulnerable to every kind of violence. And if you go to Russia, the kind of society that you see, it is not that pure and simple. It isn't that, and the kind of violence that then he claimed to to say that it existed when I said this. I mean, how can this society organize such clean cities and organized cities like that? It is it is not. It does not match a gangland. All right. And then he went on to say, "Oh, but I know some parts of Saint Petersburg that I advise you not to go." Yeah, I know some parts of so many cities that I advise you not to go. So it's kind of nothing new. Um, he later on recognized that, of course, Russia, because I argued that, okay, you might not like President Putin, but compare the Russia he inherited with the Russia he has now. And there's no comparison. I mean, there is no doubt that some good, good management, real sense of strategic uh, options has a leader. He has taken. I mean, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. And if you want to tear that apart with saying things like, "Oh, but he was a criminal and his friends are criminal," I don't really care. I don't really care. If you go about on, it's not that I don't think that criminals shouldn't be judged and trial and everything. It's not. I don't think that. It's just I tend not to overjudge others because I don't know enough about their circumstances. It's the same view we had on the minorities and on these Buryats, on this, this far eastern people from the Russian Federation. Is openly racist about it, openly. So I'm not really calling him any name. But I argued this is mainly circumstances. And then eventually, a lot of people learn throughout life. They do bad things and then they learn. Also, I do know that the kind of society that Vladimir Putin inherited when he became president was not a very peaceful one, and it was a dangerous one. If you go back and see one of his early interviews, or I think he mentioned this in several, but I don't recall which ones. But I remember him saying this, that he feared for his life when he moved to Moscow to to start his job. He feared for his life, and if you there back then you had the gangland. That's an accurate description for Russia from 1990 to the year 2000. There you had things, ganglands and dirty cities, and that's actually accurate for that time. Not anymore. And with all the Russians, I spoke with several Russians randomly in pubs and stuff, and restaurants and in the street. People that heard me speaking in a different language, was logging Portuguese and English, and they started asking me questions and were curious about. And then we exchanged a lot of ideas. And I this none of these experiences signal to me that this is the kind of society that Rolo describes. Okay, I want to make this clear. But when I invite someone to the podcast, I'm not going to debate him. That's not the point. I want to hear him, listen to him or her. And so and yeah, yes, I wanted to say this, and Rolo seems to be a very intelligent person. He speaks amazingly good English, and I think he's the only one from either Ukraine or Belarus or Russia that I know that speaks. I mean, you if you didn't know, if he didn't tell you, you wouldn't guess he was a Slav, right? I know other people that speak, for example, Masha, Maria Lelianova, she speaks perfect English, but still you can detect small bits of Russian accent on her English, and but nevertheless it's perfect, right? But you can detect traces of the in the accent, and with him it doesn't happen. So it's still tricky to me. Like, it still puzzles me. The I also asked him time zone where he was. I didn't ask him where he lived or which city or which country. I asked time zone, and even that he did not want to answer. So I mean, take it as you will. I know some of the people that follow this channel did not like this, and I had the first reaction the first time I spoke to him. This time I spoke to him was about Russell. The first time I spoke to him was about his dissidence, because I have heard an interview that Ossi Cossack. I don't know if you are familiar with Ossi Cossack. Is a Russian descendant living in Australia. I don't know if he has Australian nationality. I do not recall, but he has. I mean, I follow him on Telegram, and I do like his work. He admits he makes propaganda on behalf of Russia, but he openly honestly admits it, and the purpose of it. And I remember him debating in this interview. He debated, he rebuffed, he stopped Rolo Slavsky from talking in certain parts of this interview. Is much more aggressive than I am, but then again he does that for a living, and I do not bear that in mind. So, and Yeah, and then I wanted to talk to Rolo and to ask him to make some points that Ossie Cossack made, and to see what he did think. Yeah, and most of his, I mean, the guy is intelligent. The guy has knowledge. He's a knowledgeable person, but the things, the opinion he has on the ruling class in Russia is really, really negative. I mean, it calls them the worst things. And like I said, you shouldn't go judging people like that. In my opinion, of course, you go there, go to Russia, go and see it, and it's a wonderful, and it's a civilized place. And if you are used to the best European cities, I don't know. Let me just give you an example. For example, Amsterdam. It's a great city, clean, organized, with a lot of good policies, a lot of good city policies. Uh, you won't be disappointed with Russian cities. You won't be disappointed with Moscow. Of course, every time I talk about Moscow, people, even without knowing anything, which is not the case of Rolo, but even without knowing anything about Russia, they go on immediately saying, "Ah, but Moscow is not Russia. It's different from the rest of Russia. Once you get out, everything is dirty and dark and criminal," which is, of course, not true. Uh, I had opportunity to say this in previous videos, and I mean, I went there. I took the train to Volgograd. I walked the streets of Volgograd on my own, by day, by night. I interacted with people at day, at night, with the police. Took the bus to Donetsk, the front line, to the front lines almost. Went back to Rostov, then went back to Moscow. And look, I envy this kind of infrastructure, transportation, uh, I mean, all kinds of services they have, and I mean, I love the food, and the food is great. I mean, the ingredients taste like they should taste. Tomato tastes like tomato. It's not like this shit we are consuming now more and more in this agriculture we have in the West. They have really good quality ingredients. They reject GMOs, and they treat you well. How can I complain about people treating me well and accommodating me and uh, trying to help me, even if I don't ask for help? They see that I'm a little bit lost there, a little bit trying to find my way, and they try to help me voluntarily. I mean, really. And I haven't been, I haven't been to America yet. I have very negative opinion of it, from what I know from afar. I haven't been there. People tell me that when I went to Russia, people used to tell me that, "Oh, are you not afraid? Afraid of what?" But if you ask me to go to America, I don't know. I Maybe I'm wrong, of course, but I don't feel that safe going there and walking the way I did, just alone, randomly, without any restraint. Just chose the direction and went and go with the flow. This was my stance in Russia. Even in Donetsk, I remember a lot of time I spent with Russell, of course, but I remember just saying to Russell, while he was busy and I didn't want to be present all the time. It was a small apartment where it was him and Ludmila and then me, so I didn't want to be present all the time. So I remember going out in the street on my own and just walking with my phone and filming and talking in Donetsk, the gangland, right? So yeah, I wanted to say this about that. that live stream. So for the people that it might have sounded strange, me inviting Rolo, I was really open to his opinion to see maybe he's right, maybe I don't know, maybe, but no. Look, we do not. Let's not make here the saints and the demons, right? People have their pasts, and when I judge the Russian society, I judge it for what I see, for its policies towards its people, and I did like what I saw. So uh, no, nothing. I won't go any further there. I mean, I don't care what people do in their private lives or they did in their past. I mean, they're obviously doing a good job. Obviously, the mayor of Moscow is doing a great job. Obviously, the mayor of Volgograd is doing a good job. Uh, Also, the mayor in Rostov. I mean, the city was also clean and organized. I did not like it that much because of too much traffic. Okay, that's a thing that happens in cities, right? Traffic, and that was maybe the downside of Rostov on Don. The rest I enjoyed just the same. So yeah, and you see the geopolitics and you see the stance of Russia, and a lot of leftists like me tend to see Russia with good eyes, although it is not a leftist government. It is not a communist government, as many would like to see, as I would like to see. But even that, I mean, I being a communist, I wouldn't dare going to Ukraine as it is now, right? But I felt pretty safe and pretty welcomed in Russia as a communist, and and I was really happy that the way they preserved the Soviet in landmarks and not just the big landmarks, but everything, every aspect. I mean, if you go to the most famous ones are the subway stations, of course. But then I remember in Volgograd and walking in the lamp posts, the poles, making out of like cast iron or something, and they all have the hammer and the sickle engraved there, and it's really, really, really nice. Really, they do not have any prejudice about it. And while in Europe, uh, officials try to pass the speech and pass the idea that communism is the same as Nazism, which is a lie. It's a dishonest lie. It serves the purpose of demonizing one group over another, and it's just not accurate. It's just, I mean, they of course they point out the mistakes and done in former socialist governments like the USSR, but this is not the norm, and this is not the aim, and this is not the what they advocated for. If you make a mistake, but I mean, it doesn't follow the book you were supposed to follow, right? Uh, and if you speak about the NAZIs, they advocate for this kind of violence and segregation and consider humans superior to others and these kinds of things. So it's really an absurd to be trying to make any comparisons between the two ideologies. Uh, and of course, and of course, Russia is suffering as well, and it's suffering not at the hands of Ukraine. Of course, Russia is suffering at the hands of NATO. Uh, it is. It is. It is. I can see that NATO is not going to stop. The U.S. Of course, who leads NATO? The U.S. The U.S. is not going to stop aiding Ukraine, sending weapons, whatever. Europe just follows the U.S. like a dog on a leash. Uh, like a very subservient, with a subservient role, which is also very, I think, degrading, and a sign that the degradation of the kind of leadership we have in Europe. And the future is not that clear because of this kind of policy we follow in the West. I even heard, Slavoj Zizek. I even heard Slavoj Zizek attacking people who defend Russia because he said that Russia is this kind of state is pensionistic, whatever, and it must be stopped, cannot be ignored, and it simply doesn't make any sense. And I really suspect Zizek, being the brain, the mastermind that he is, that on this one maybe just saying maybe he had some extra dollars in his pocket. I don't know. Just I know I'm being mean now, and I don't like it, but it's strange for him just saying things like that can be really proven otherwise. Russia does not want to invade Europe. It has no reason to do it whatsoever. And it doesn't gain anything. On the contrary, right? So yeah, this is my opinion on this, and on the conversation I had with Rolo. I hope you enjoyed it at some extent, nevertheless. And like I said, I do not sanctify the Russian government. I mean, I believe Russians have problems like any other country has. Uh, but at least one thing I do really enjoy when I compare the the behavior of the leaders in Russia and the leaders where I am is that, first of all, they seem to be much more knowledgeable in a lot of subjects, which I think is kind of needed for a leader, don't you think? You don't want to elect a dumbass that can be easily manipulated by others. So, and they tend to have a more rational and a more rich speech, and a more rich logic in their speech, and so they do really appear to understand what they are talking about. I mean, Putin wouldn't go on. I don't know any other leader that can give you live a history lesson of half an hour, right? And I'm not really even mentioning Joe Biden, of course. I mean, that's a complete joke. I mean, that's one of the examples, right? But if you think of Annalena Baerbock, if you think of Scholz, if you think of Macron, if you think of Richie Sunak, I mean, this is just pampered kids, right? Marionettes, just puppets of some other power. So really weak people, people that are good at crying slogans like a salesman. No belief whatsoever in what they're saying, but they can pretend very well. This is how I compare, and I don't see this show off on the Russian leaders. Much more sober, much more serious. And I know a lot of people that disagree with me. They would be laughing. They were gonna laugh at these words, but that's just my general feelings, and I really have to see otherwise to believe otherwise, right? Um, yeah. So don't go lose on any hope on this channel. we 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 try to continue to be fair. I mean, if Russia suddenly started, I mean, if they would go on and invade Finland and invade Poland, nevertheless, Poland is kind of has been, I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything that YouTube might censor. But if they go on and invaded Finland and just like that, I mean that, of course, that I would have to condemn. And but the whole Ukrainian thing is, as you all know, and this is for people who follow this, is an old story already. Has nothing to do with just imperialistic goals and the conquer of territory and the ruling of neighbors. It has nothing to do with that. It actually has to do with defense. I've talked about this also before. Okay. At the moment, I feel I'm gonna start rambling. Like I said on the last video, and I've published in the last video a couple of bits on Russell. I won't do this on this video. I will do it separately, so it's easier for people to see. I'm gathering all the conversations, even off-topic conversations that I just had with Russell at breakfast, cigarette breaks, in his place. We talked about a lot of issues, and I made a lot of this. I made a ton of these videos, and I'm gonna start releasing them in his memory, of course, with maybe brief introductions with me, but not more than that. Okay, I see you on the next one. And if you please wish me to talk about any particular subject, to research about any particular subject, to talk about it, or to have any, or sorry, if you want to recommend any guest that you wish me to talk to, please let me know in the comments. Don't be shy. I want to. See you on the next one.